Hello dear students, welcome once again to online video lectures. Today we'll talk about the economic liberalization. Before we start this topic, let us get a small introduction regarding liberalization. It is not alone. Liberalization was introduced by the Indian government in the year 1991 along with the policies of privatization and globalization. During 1991, India faced a major challenge of inflation and lower GDP. To overcome this problem of lower GDP and inflation, the government of India introduced three policies. These policies were termed as liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So we'll talk about liberalization, privatization, and globalization one by one. In these three terms, first of all, we'll talk about economic liberalization. The government has brought about certain changes in its economic policies so as to maintain its pace with the developing world and make India a developed nation. So during 1991, our government made some changes in the economic policies so that we can cope up with the developing world and we can also make our India a developed nation. In accordance with the policy of liberalization, it was adopted in the year 1991. And due to these policies, some rules and regulation regarding the manufacturing and trade and commerce were removed. So before 1991, the Indian traders were not allowed to trade with any of the foreign countries and to conduct any type of business relation of export and import with any of the foreign countries. And if they were doing any type of import and export with the foreign countries, they have to pay a very high taxes. They have to pay great duties. A large amount of money was expended by the traders, so the small traders were not interested to have a trading relationship between the foreign countries. But after 1991, with the introduction of these three policies, many regulations regarding the trade and commerce were removed by the government. Duties and taxes, relaxation on import export were announced. The process of establishing a new manufacturing unit was made more simpler than it was before. So thus India had been able to keep pace with the world in terms of production and trade and commerce. It also generated more employment opportunities. So these policies proved to be a great benefit for Indian traders because they were able to establish new trade relationship between foreign countries, and they were also able to generate more employment opportunities. In this way, the GDP and inflation problems were brought under control by the government. Let us talk about the privatization and then we'll talk about globalization. So after the independence, many public ventures were started by the government of India. Public venture means large manufacturing projects owned by the government. We have talked about the ownership, the private ownership, the government ownership, joint sector ownership, and cooperative ownership in the previous videos. So you will be understanding what are government ownership industries. So government started many public ventures, and with the passage of time, these ventures made less profit and incurred very loss. So the government industries were having a great loss because the people involved in the government industries or government jobs were found to be less efficient. And regarding this efficiency, when the efficiency of the workers is less, the company has less profit or incurs a heavy loss. So many public ventures had to be closed down for this reason. You all know that if a shop is running in a loss, we cannot continue the shop for a longer period and we have to close down it at the end. So same thing happened with the public ventures. This left in an impact on our economic system. The workers became united, but the industry suffered big losses. So when the industries were closed down, the workers who were working in the industries, they had no work. So they got united and protested against the government to start the industries. But as the industries were suffering big losses, they were not able to be started again. And on the other side, the emphasis of quality increased around the world. People started giving preference to good quality goods. Previously, the good quality goods were not given that much importance, but as the time passed, people became aware about the quality, about the consistency, and people started giving preference to good quality products. So the private sector started making more profit because the private sector was making good quality clothes, good quality products, good quality goods. So they started making more profit. Because of all these circumstances, the government got motivated to introduce privatization. Government started showing inclination towards private sector, and the joint sector is a part of process of privatization. When the government industries were totally given in the private control, they were termed as the private sector units, and when the government gave half or the partial control to the private sector units, it was termed as the joint sector units. We have already discussed about the ownership conditions in the previous videos. If you have any doubts regarding the ownership issues, you can see the previous videos and you can get clarification regarding the ownership. Now let us talk about globalization. Globalization means the world becoming one, or the countries coming closer to one another. It means that previously India was not in the relationship of establishing new trade relationship with any of the countries. If any joint sector units or the private sector units wanted to establish trade relationship with the foreign countries, they had to pay heavy taxes. And due to the due to the globalization, any country of the world was able to trade with each other easily. It integrated the markets and production units of various countries. The process of growing international relation and the integration of markets across the world is globalization. It means, in short, if we want to understand what is globalization, it means all the countries, all the industries which are developing in the countries of the world, they come closer to each other and establish trade relationship so that every country can prosper itself and have a great profit. So this unique revolution in the field of information technology has stimulated globalization. As there was development in the information technology, it gave stimulation to this globalization, and all the countries were able to connect with each other, and the World Trade Organization, established in 1995, is working towards the promoting and fostering globalization. So these policies which were introduced by Indian government was also given okay signal by the World Trade Organization, and it termed that these policies can really bring difference in the development of the countries, and thus can gain more profits and make their countries to develop and prosperous. Now we'll talk about the effect of globalization. We have seen that the government had introduced the three policies of privatization, globalization, and liberalization. And after that, what were the effects of these policies? We'll talk about that. The first is employment opportunities have increased in the service sector due to the advent of information technology. First point says that with the introduction of these three policies, the employment opportunities, the people were able to get more employment, the unemployment rate was brought down, the people were having new jobs, and they were able to support their family. With the introduction of phone, fax machine, mobile telecommunication, email, internet, and video conferencing, these are some of the revolutionary tools of information technology which made possible to transfer information more faster and at a very low cost. This has made the economic development of our country much faster than before. So we can say the information technology is helping the countries to come more closer in a cheap and easier way. The multinational companies started projects in different countries which have proved to be profitable for the host nation. For example, the Ford Motors has a car. It has a manufacturing plant in India where cars are manufactured not only for India but for other countries also. Apparently, India receives the advantage of this venture. Similarly, the big companies of India such as Tata Motors, Infosys, Asian Paints, Parley, etc. can export their commodities in the foreign markets also. So this became possible only with the introduction of policy of globalization. So these policies were a boon for the development of the trade and commerce in our country. Consumers get commodities of a very good quality and at a very low price due to the competition. For example, China have made toys which became very popular in the Indian markets due to its low price and attractive designs. In 1 year only, the Chinese toys have replaced the Indian toys up to 70 to 80% in the Indian markets. Now, the toys in the Indian markets are cheaper than before, and do you know the reason behind this? Due to the international trade, the Chinese toys came in the Indian market and proved to be better than the Indian toys, and however, the Indian toy manufacturers and traders have incurred losses due to this. So, globalization sometimes causes loss to the cottage industries also. But we don't think that this is a big problem for a nation, because if a nation is able to develop more preferable toys or more preferable goods than other foreign countries, or the people of India can be motivated to purchase the Swadeshi goods, this problem can be overcome. So we have talked about the effects of the globalization, which has some positive and some negative ventures, some positive effects and some negative effects. So that's all for today. We'll continue with the other things in the next video. So thank you for now. Keep studying and stay safe.